Hello, everyone. So today you should be just watching this video. Remember that you don't have to hop on the Zoom call unless you need further explanation or help on any assignment. So by the end of the day today, you guys will be able to access your grades in Hack. I haven't synced them to Hack yet, but I will be syncing them to Hack today. So make sure that you check your grades on Hack and make sure that you have all of your assignments submitted. Some of you guys didn't submit your assignment. If I was able to see it, I was able to put in a grade for you. But if I wasn't able to see it, like if your document wasn't there or if you didn't add a document in, um, or if you didn't click on my documents in your assignment tab, it most likely just didn't show up for me. So make sure that you go in on all of your assignments and you check and make sure that all of them are submitted, okay? So we're going to go ahead and finish off the presentation for elements of design. We did line yesterday. If you missed yesterday, all of the slides for yesterday are on your classroom page on Schoology. So make sure that you check those out from yesterday before you start the video today. So I'm going to go ahead and start. There will be some videos that you guys will watch in this with me, and I will also post those videos on the same page that this video is on so that you guys can watch those if it doesn't play sound or if you want to watch them again, they will be there for you. So shape, so we talked about line yesterday. So when a line crosses itself or interacts with other lines to enclose a space, it creates a shape, right? So basically, if you have something that is open, and I'm going to use my screen here or my blackboard here. So basically, if I have something that is drawn out like that, that is not a shape, right? As you can see, there is an opening there, and so that is not a shape. But as soon as we close this off, it becomes a shape, and now it's a little pin from like Apple Maps. But that is the definition of a shape. So shapes are two-dimensional, and it does have height and width, but no depth. So if you think back to math class where you did cubes and things like that, these have three different measurements, right? This cube would have three different measurements. It would have your height, your width, and your depth. And the depth is how deep it is, right? But here we only have a height and a width. So keep that in mind while we think about shapes. So we do have examples of shapes here. We have geometric shapes like I talked about yesterday. These are shapes that you can measure. Then we have organic shapes. They're more natural shapes that you can't really measure. You can measure them if you make a circle in the middle of it or a square in the middle of it, but you're not going to get that true measurement of that. Positive and negative here are examples of shapes as well. Obviously, we can see that this is made by negative space surrounded by positive space, and this is the opposite. It is positive space surrounded by negative space. So that is positive and negative shapes that we have there. Here we have static shapes. So those are also natural, kind of organic things that come from nature, and they are stagnant, if you would. Then we have dynamic shapes, and those are just kind of interesting. Those that come out in nature as well. So here are some images that we have of shapes. As you can see here on this first one, this is a stage design. So we have a cylinder here. We have squares over here. And yes, these things are three-dimensional, but if you just look at the flatness of the shapes, the 2D flatness or the 2D shape itself, you can see that there are different shapes within this. And this next one, we have dress forms is what we call them, which is kind of interesting because these are shapes, not forms, but these are the two-dimensional versions of those dress forms. So we have the shape of girls, we have their hair, we have very geometric shapes. These are triangles, these are circles, these are squares for their necks. And so you can see the geometric kind of things there. The next thing we have here is a picture of somebody wearing costumes with dots. Obviously, these dots are natural because they're from a leopard skin or a cheetah skin, but but they are circles. So we consider that part of shapes as well. If you look down here, you can see the design of this costume. I can move my face over. I don't know if my face is there for you guys. But here you see, I'm actually gonna move myself to the, can't do that. Here you see that she has shapes within her gown. So she has triangles, she has these ovals that are coming up around her waist and things like that. Very pretty costume. And then we see it in real life. We see how it actually panned out on the actress, and it looks very pretty. So as I said, there were shapes. We're not going to worry about trying to find the shapes within these examples. So next we're going to watch this video where it talks about shape and it kind of just encapsulates all of it, or not.
The element of shape. Shape is defined as the contour of a flat object. Shape can be rendered either overtly or more subtly with a collective of other shapes or with a general contour of an object. Three general categories of shape are geometric, modified, and organic. Within the geometric shape category, the big three are circle, triangle, and rectangle. Circles. As an expression of a complete rotation and having no endpoints, circles are often used to convey a sense of completion, wholeness, and the eternal. Triangles. Triangles often signify directional movement, most often in the cardinal directions. A triangle with a flat baseline and two equal sides feels balanced and offers a sense of an apex, like a mountain, or may be used to signify a hierarchy. Rectangles. Rectangles are a bit different. Look around you right now. You are surrounded by rectangles. Your phone, laptop, walls, doors, windows. Rectangles are everywhere in human design. Now contrast this with nature. If you went for a walk in the woods, where would you find a perfect rectangle? Pretty much nowhere. So when we use a rectangle, we're signaling human design. Next, we have modified shapes. The three most common modifications of shapes are rounding, skewing, and rotating. While sharp corners feel precise, rounded corners feel safer, more inviting, and that's why so many icons and buttons are rounded. Skewing a shape can give it a sense of 3D perspective or speed. Rotating a shape often entirely changes its meaning. For example, this triangle can convey balance or imbalance, depending on its rotation. Next, we have organic shapes. Organic shapes compose the huge range of irregularly angled shapes. Two common groups of organic shapes are bilateral and asymmetrical. Bilateral organic shapes, like a tree or animal, resonate with us because the human body is also bilaterally symmetrical. This also means we're quick to notice when an object is not quite bilaterally symmetrical. Asymmetrical organic shapes, like a paint splatter or a cloud, may reference nature or feel more disorderly and chaotic. Lastly, shape offers the artist a sort of superpower, a different way of seeing the world. To explain, rather than viewing a complex object as composed of edge lines that may be really hard to draw, seeing objects as made of simple shapes allows you to work faster and with a greater sense of proportion and accuracy.
So as I show you guys these videos, the things that I want you to really think about and like listen to are the ways that he describes the way that these shapes, forms, all these things feel. Because when we are designing for theater, the biggest thing is the feel, right? We want to know how the actors feel. We want to know what this environment is supposed to make us feel. And so in order to do those things, we need to know how these lines feel, how these shapes feel, how these forms feel, all of the elements of design, what they make people feel, so that we can understand how to make people feel a specific way, or the way that we want them to feel when we do our designs in theater. So keep that in mind, no matter what you decide to do, whether you do sound, whether you do music or makeup, whether you do costumes, you will find that adding in feeling is the main thing that we're doing here in design. So as much as I want you guys to know about the actual logistics behind design, the feelings and the emotions that we feel with design is what I'm really focusing on. That's why I want you guys to watch these videos. Also, these videos are going to be available all the time. I'm going to make 2 buttons that I'm going to add to my banner. So where you see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday every day. On the other side of it, I'm going to add in the elements of design button and the principles of the design button. So the elements of design button will have all of these videos, and then tomorrow you'll see the videos for the principles of designs, and those will also be put up, so that anytime you guys are designing, you guys will have access to that. So you'll be able to say, okay, I can do this, or I need to add in a feeling of loneliness. Let me see what I can find. So that is why we are watching these videos. This other part of it that I'm explaining to you guys is as important, but it is slightly less important in theatrical design. So the next thing is form, and form is 3-dimensionality of an object. So you can hold a form, walk around a form, and in some cases walk inside of a form. So those are the actual objects that we have on stage. So obviously, as I was saying before, 3-dimensional shapes are our forms. We always need to have some sort of 3-dimensional shape. That is what form means. So a shape can't be a form can't be a shape, but both of those things include line. Then here we have some examples. So you can see she made her face a little bit more 3-dimensional by adding some shadow here. And here she kind of looks like a puppet, and you can see that her cheeks look like they pop out. Her nose does as well. That is well contouring done. Here we have an old Victorian style dress, and that also adds a form, right? The reason that they have this whole thing in the back was because they wanted the illusion of junk in the trunk, right? So that is what they added in to give her more of a form, to make her more of a lady. An interesting concept, but a concept that was thought of in Victorian time. Here we see a stage that has some really pretty line work up here, but these are also forms. As you can see, these are all 3-dimensional, so those are forms. Then here we have his form, the way that he's jumping in his little picture. That was mid jump, and so that's a really pretty form, but he too is 3-dimensional. He is not flat. We can see that he has some form because there's some shadow and highlight within him. So let's watch the video on form.
The element of form. Form refers to 3D objects, that is, objects having height, width, and depth. And like shapes, there is a range of standard forms, known as solids. These solids are the sphere, cube, pyramid, cylinder, and cone. In traditional studio art, these forms are often assembled together into what is called a still life that allows artists to study the interplay of light and shadow in 3D space. There's even fancy terms to describe the quality of light on these forms, including the highlight, transition, core shadow, reflected light, umbra, and penumbra. And by deconstructing complex forms into these solids, artists can learn to depict anything the eye can see. And that is why the element of form is an essential element of art.
So you guys won't necessarily have to worry about those pieces of a 3D form, but it is interesting to think about when you see objects in everyday life. So the next thing is texture. So texture is the visual or tactile surface characteristics and appearance of something. So yesterday I showed you guys my mouse pad, and it is velvet. And so you can see, I think a little bit better here, that there is some sort of texture on it, right? We can see that there's some texture. It doesn't look like it's just smooth, although smooth is also a texture. So this can be smooth. You can see that it's smooth because of the reflection of my light. I'm trying to find it here. You can see that it is smooth there. So what we have here in the images are real textures. So those are real things, right? You could walk up to it, feel that it feels like that, right? What we use in theater a lot of the time is implied texture. So obviously we can't have like real tree bark on a prop, because then if somebody walks by it, it's going to scrape their dress, it'll scrape their costume. And so we usually don't use real textures in theater. What we usually use are implied textures. So as you can see here, this is a tree and this is tree bark, but it's painted on. And here as well, it kind of looks like it's maybe braids of hair, threads of hair or something. That is implied as well. By implied, all we mean is that we draw it on. We draw that texture on. And so in order to draw that texture on, we use different paints, we use different stencils and things like that. But you will find that in theater, a lot of the time it's implied texture. So we have some props and some items in our loft, which is where we store all of our stage pieces and things. When you guys go up there, you will find that there are things that look like they have texture, but as soon as you touch them, they have a smooth texture. And that's really just for the safety of everyone, so that we don't have any cut hands or anything like that using real textures, especially when they're harsh textures. So as you can see here, we have some examples. I'm just going to bring out a couple of them. So I want to show you number 3, where he is a wood sculpture puppet thing. So earlier we saw someone else that looked like a puppet, but this one has more texture. So he actually looks like he's made of wood, right? Obviously someone doesn't have that skin, doesn't have wood skin, I guess you would call it. But that is a texture that we can see. And now we think automatically, we have subconsciously that he is wood, right? The other one I want to look at is number 2. As you can see, there's like a bunch of lights. It kind of looks like they're almost diamonds or mineral-ish looking. So those textures are actually created with light. And we can also create things with light. We can use projectors, we can use light gobos that add texture, things like that. We'll learn about that later, but those are ways that we do achieve texture in theater without actually having to add in that real texture. So let's watch the video on texture.
The element of texture. Texture is the tactile quality of a surface. Textures can be categorized by their method, function, and character. A texture's method refers to how it's created. This can be actual or implied. Actual textures have qualities that one could physically touch, like real fur or real scales. Implied textures are the illusion of a texture, as created through drawing techniques, or the virtual mapping of a texture using software. The function of a texture can also be important. Textures can be critical to identifying what an object is, and textures can offer a sense of spatial orientation. Lastly, the character of a texture spans the range of tactile descriptions. For example, rough or smooth, hard or soft, glossy or matte, and thousands of other tactile possibilities. These subtle visual cues provided by texture often help a work feel more interesting and more complete. And there you have it, the element of texture.
So as you saw in those last videos, or in those last 2 pictures that he brought up, you can see that texture is super important. I'm just going to bring it back to those 2. So you can see before the texture and then after the texture, it adds a little bit more of definition. I'm not going to spend time trying to go back to that. Color, my favorite. Color comes from light. If it weren't for light, we would have no color. When the light rays hit an object, our eyes respond to that light that is bounced back, and we see that color. For example, a red ball reflects all the red light's rays. And as artists, we use pigments in the form of powder or liquid paints to create color. So that is very true. But not only do we use those to create color, like for solid things like makeup and set design and things like that, but we also use different types of colors for lighting as well. So here are some examples of the types of colors. So we have primary colors. Obviously, you guys should know these colors. At least you learned them in elementary school. Primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, and then color harmonies. So color harmonies are just what colors look good together. And so we'll go through that a little bit more, because with color theory, there are two different types of color theory. There are additive and subtractive. I don't think that's the word for it. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what the real word is. But we have two different types, and we use additive in theater. And so we'll learn the two different types, and we'll learn how they are different. They are vastly different, but just in color, or just using color in general, is a big part of design. So as you can see here in these examples, we have a bunch of different colors being used. So here in this first one, we have a set design or a costume design for Patrick for the like on stage version of SpongeBob the Musical. We can see that in order to keep it to being Patrick, we use the same colors. Obviously, we don't have people who are going to be dressing up in starfish costumes or sponge costumes or anything like that. So what we do is try to match those colors, because then we see that and we think, oh, Patrick. Especially if we are already at a SpongeBob musical, we already have the preconceived notion that we're going to be watching SpongeBob on stage. So we make Patrick pink with green, and boom, he is Patrick. The next thing is number 2. There's that picture of, it looks like an old Victorian show or a Shakespearean show, but they used a lot of colors that are very earthy because in this time, like in this time period, there were not very many colors. We were still discovering colors and ways to paint things those colors, to create colors so that people can use them, things like that. So in that time period, the colors that we had were earthy colors and reds and purples, and those were more expensive. So we see the golds, we see the red, we see all these, and so we know that these people have money. In 4, this is, I want to call her a Kyoshi warrior. That is not true. It is from Kabuki theater. Got the word. It's from Kabuki theater. They use a lot of color, not too much like variety of color, but they use color in their designs. So that is a traditional Kabuki style makeup. I actually had to do that in one of my finals for college. And then the third one is that picture of Wicked. We see green, black, gray, and white being used there mostly. But we do see that color difference. We have the negative and positive space, while those are still the characters, which is really cool. So let's watch the video on color. We're almost done, guys. One more.
The element of color. More than any other element, color can have an immediate and powerful impact on us. But color is also the most complex and challenging element to work with. So to make color easier to understand,
making my
the
video.
traditional red, yellow, blue, or RYB color wheel provides the foundation for what is commonly called color theory. In RYB, red, yellow, and blue are considered primary colors, because these 3 colors can be mixed to create all other colors, but cannot be mixed themselves. The secondary colors are orange, green, and purple. Secondary colors are made by mixing 2 neighboring primary colors. So, for example, blue and red make purple. Tertiary colors are the remaining colors in between primary and secondary colors. For example, this is blue-green. One way that colors are categorized is by way of their perceived temperature. Warm colors are the colors on the red-orange side of the color wheel. These colors are thought to be more aggressive, making warm colors often a great choice for signage and logos. Cool colors are on the blue side of the color wheel. These colors have a receding quality. To explain, because Earth's atmosphere is blue, as objects get farther away, they get increasingly tinted blue. Harmonies are color combinations that go well together. The big three are analogous colors, which are any three contiguous colors. Complementary colors, which are two colors that are opposite each other. And triadic colors, which are any three colors that are evenly split into thirds. Three common color modifications are tinting, which is adding white to a color, toning, which is adding gray to a color, and shading, which is adding black to a color. Lastly, the RYB color wheel, it is just the starting point for understanding the world of color. So be sure to check out part 2 of The Element of Color.
We'll be checking out part 2 later because that is where we will start talking about lighting in theater and using color in lighting. There's more. Oh, maybe that's it. Oh, wow. Look at that. That is all. All right. So last couple things. Once again, make sure that you check your hack to make sure that those grades are in because there were some of you that didn't submit your assignment and I was unable to see them. If you didn't submit your assignment, but I was able to see them, there should be a grade there. So you're good. But if you don't see a grade there, make sure that your assignment is actually submitted on Schoology. If not, just shoot me an email. Let me know. Hey, Ms. Burton, I did my About Me. I don't have a grade for it, and I don't see it on Schoology. I'll try to figure it out. And if not, I'll send it to you again, and we'll work something out. But make sure that you contact me if that's the case so that I know. Don't forget to do your check-in. Now that you have finished watching this video, you are able to do your check-in. So make sure you do your check-in. That is your attendance for today. You do not need to hop on Zoom unless any of that was super confusing or I went too fast for you and you need me to slow down. You can hop on Zoom and I will go through it again for you. So I will be here, but you do not have to get on for attendance. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.